Good morning. My name is Rusty Weiger. I'm from PEO Aviation. I've been there since before it was a PEO, so I've been around for a while. I started there in '85. That was before there was ever even a PEO. And these guys, some of these guys have been around not quite that long, but pretty close. I remember Courtney when he was a child, I think. He was a captain or something.
Captain.
Yeah. So it's been a while for the, so these guys will have a lot of experience in the PEO side. The conversation on cold spray, I actually had a note when they talked about ACLC and the lead the fleet stuff. I had written down a note before that question even came out that said, if you're going to do that, you might want to engage the PMs, because if you're going to have airworthiness, any ability to actually feel that anytime in the future, other than just run the test for the fun of the test, you're going to have the PM involved, because they'll tie in the engineers, they'll tie in AMCOM, tie in everything for the airworthiness, the configuration management. So I understand you can go the other path, but ultimately you're going to have to go back to the PM anyhow, so you might as well just start there as opposed to starting with ACLC. It's just easier on it. It's not like we're trying to get in the middle, but if you expect it to go anywhere long term, that's probably a better path. And if you need a specific PM or anything, just come up and get my card and I'll tie you in with the right guys. With cold spray, it's probably going to cover multiple, so I'll tie you in with my chief engineer, who cover all the PMs for you and help with that. But any of the lead the fleet efforts or those kind of things that you want to try and run a test on, I still suggest you come up and see one of the PMs to start the process.
Sir, I'd also like to make a plug for engage the aviation science and technology community, the AETD folks up at Fort Eustis. And you can do that through the PM, because they have one of everything that the Army has. That's what they're there for, is to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And they have the experimental test pods that can put together a test program. You can enter into a test support agreement with them and work out whatever details you have. So they have the airworthiness component, they have the test program component, and they have, and they're tied into the PMs and the aviation community as well.
That's Courtney giving a plug for one of his former organizations. But in reality, I mean, that's what, and it was true though. They do the earlier type testing, the higher risk stuff, the things that you wouldn't want to put on a, I'm talking for Fort Rucker, it'd be more like lead the fleet, where you have minimum risk and you just want to put a lot of hours on it. The first time tests, he's right, AATD would be one of your better choices. But we can work all that again with the PM. We'll let you, we'll run into the right places. We're going to cover a little bit different stuff here. I mean, you've had a lot of conversations on the sustainment and some other things, and we're going to cover the sustaining for the programs. But for the Army, the aviation PMs are in this organization. Well, not all of them are represented here. We've got a pretty good representation. And these guys are going to talk to you about what we're doing for trying to improve sustainment immediately, and some longer term, like modernization plans, longer term strategies and things we have going for that. So that should be help for not just near term, but looking out a little bit on what we're thinking about and what we're trying to do. And if you've got more ideas, bring them in, because we're always willing to try it. Obviously, with the budget going down, sometimes you have to try more things, but but it also makes some things harder to fight and compete for, because there's more things fighting for less dollars. But, so there's a little bit of it's a give and take. It's a win-lose kind of thing, but it works well, I think. These guys will work it, and if it doesn't work in one, sometimes it'll work in another, because we've got a cargo, a UAS, Apache, Blackhawk here. We've got some big guys and some of the newer, younger, or littler platforms working here. Littler, yeah. Courtney's the little guy. Actually, he's got some pretty large equipment too. Paul Baker is going to talk to you about the Chinook program, what we have there. He's the deputy PM for Chinook. He's been around there for a few years. Actually, I was thinking about this morning. His path is similar to what mine was. I worked in Apache for a long time and then moved over to Chinook. That's exactly what he's doing right now. Now he's the deputy PM for Chinook. Same path I took. Pretty close, actually. And then we'll go into Courtney, and he'll talk to you about UAS. Colonel Cassino will talk to you about Apache stuff. and then Jim Hawkins will get to you on the Black Hawk. I'd really want to just get these guys started and let me know. So go ahead, Paul.
Okay. Good morning. As Rusty said, Paul Baker, I'm the Deputy PM for Cargo Helicopters. Colonel Barry is the PM. We are organized. We now have 3 product offices. So we have the F model PM, we have modernization PM, and we just got this summer stood up one of the first centrally selected civilian product offices for Cargo International. So, you know, we're doing a lot of work with FMS and international partners selling helicopters. So let me go to the next chart. So CH-47 has been around for a long time, and it's going to be out in the field for quite a bit longer. We are currently in the process of retiring the D model. Last D models will be out of the field, Army inventory, in 2019. And we are fielding our F models. We've DD-250 323 of F models currently. We also have a G model out there that SOCOM manages. There are 69 of those. They just put together 8 new builds. One of the things that has happened over the last 10 years of war, basically, is we have diverged from the G model and the F model on configuration quite a bit. We will never be able to have the same configuration. They have mission responsibilities that we won't have, but there are some things that going forward we're working together right now to try to converge back together on some things in the airframes and other things. So, you know, our production ends on the F model in 2020, and we've been told we're going to be in the field till at least 2060. So one of the things we've been working on, yeah, we're a 100-year aircraft right now. So we're going to be out in the field for quite some time.
If there's no delays.
Yeah, if there are no delays. So we've been looking at that. So one of the questions is, how do you keep a platform relevant for, another 40 years? And if you look back at the history of Chinook, about every 10 years, well, there's an upgrade. A to B, B to C. It's been on about a 10-year cycle. The first CH-47Fs came out in the EMD program was 2003. First aircraft fielded were 2006. So 16 is about 10 years. So we're looking at a incremental blocking strategy. The first step in that is block 2. Some of these G models that are out there that SOCOM has, they didn't get the new airframes. So they've got original A model airframes on those. So we're working together to try to lay out a program that we can converge some of the design. We can help modernize together and maybe drive down cost and cut some production time off. So let's go to the next chart. So I could have talked probably my entire briefing on that first chart, so I figure I better go to the next one. But here we are with the F models, right? Active components done. We're at 323 aircraft. So we're nearing the end right now on F model production. Next chart. Did it go? No, it did not. There we go. Some of the things we've been doing for in our modernization office, cargo on-off load system is we've always had the capability to configure an aircraft for cargo. Unfortunately, if you did that, it was cargo rails on top of the floor, took a long time. If you did it, that's what you had. You had a cargo assist helicopter with rails above the floor. What this COOLS does is it gives the guys the capability in flight to basically go and flip panels over, and you can go from a passenger floor to a cargo floor in flight in about 15 minutes. So that's going on we're retrofitting that in the field. We're also doing that as part of the multi-year 2 aircraft. Advanced Chinook rotor blade is in development now. It'll be part of our Block 2 program, which I'll talk about in a minute. But it's a redesigned blade. We are hoping, our wind tunnel test showed us that we should expect somewhere between 1,500 and 1,800 pounds of additional lift. It's just taken, our old composite blade design and bringing it up to a new standard. Then, CPHE is what we've cut in for our hum solution on aircraft in multi-year 2. And then we've got a couple other things that are going on, and things that we've provided to field. I'm not pushing this button hard enough. Let's see if we get the jump.
Next slide.
Next slide, please. There we go. So what is Block 2? Block 2 right now, we had several ongoing ECPs. And you always get into the question of how do you field them. Whenever we were looking at some of these are significant modifications to the aircraft, and going out to a unit, and we've kind of learned that going out to a unit, you don't want to go out, tell the commander, here, I'm going to put this on, and I'm going to take your aircraft down for 2 weeks, and in 3 months I'll be back to do something else. So one of the things that started this was we had all these ongoing ECPs. Can we bundle these together, put them together, and do a more in-depth modification of the aircraft? The other thing is that in 10 years of war, we put, for all the right reasons, we put a lot of modifications on the aircraft, MWOs, safety, ASE, et cetera, and so on. We've added weight to the aircraft. So how do we gain back some of the performance that we've lost through the incorporation of those modifications? So third thing was that the G model guys have a lot of old aircraft. They needed to do something, recap of an aircraft. You spend a lot of money. Yes, you're resetting back to zero a lot of components, but you've still got the same performance you had going in. So our basic premise was that we could bundle these together, and for a little bit more than we could recap an aircraft, which we were going to have to do anyway, we could come out with something and increase the performance of the aircraft for not that much money. So there's an AOA ongoing right now that's looking at that, and these are the things that they're looking at. The PIP program cuts in the ARC 231s, brings us up to the multi-year 2 configuration. We're looking at increasing the drive system, improve drive drain, bring that up so that we can basically take full advantage of our current engine, and also look at, can we put a little bit of margin in so that in the next phase when we want to put a bigger engine on, can we do that without having to redesign again? So we're looking at those things. I already talked about the rotor blade, the rotor system, electrical system, put a third generator on because we keep adding things. So, DVE's coming, all of those kind of things in the future. So we want to get a little bit more margin in some of these systems. And of course, our standard upgrades of, avionics software, flight control software. And then one other thing that is the fuel tanks on the system. over the modifications of the aircraft, A models had a tank, and then we added another tank, and then we added another tank. So we had 3 tanks on a side. So one of the things we looked at was, G models got some more reliable fuel pumps and some other things. So go to a single tank design, not the fat tank that they have, but we go to a single tank design, increase reliability, and just move forward. So now the third thing we're looking at is increasing the commonality in the airframe. So that's where the AOA is concentrating a lot of effort. This would basically, we would have pretty much the same airframe as the G model. We won't have all of all the other things, but from a manufacturing standpoint, it would be more common. And so there, both of us would have 54,000 pound capability. That gets us more performance. We would also requalify basically the system to airworthiness standards for 54,000 pounds. Them having a smaller fleet, they can, shall we say, have shorter maintenance periods than we can across the Army. They don't pay as much of a penalty as we would in our maintenance. So that would be a plus for them. They might be able to extend some maintenance periods by going common with us. So that's pretty much the Block 2 program. Heavy lift in theater right now. I think everybody realizes that we're all decreasing in, how many aircraft we got over there, but we're still over there supporting. And my last few slides are just kind of on, the sustainability, the teaming we've done with CCAD, and it's the successful teaming between the PM, the Sustainment Directorate, ALC, our industry partners, and basically what that means is that everybody, the stock availability is going up, the turnaround time that it takes to get something repaired at the depot has been going down. I think it's been a win-win for everyone, and we have had pretty good success with the engine program. We've had, again, as you can see, the op tempo is driving. We're going to do less and less repairs, but that's just driven by op tempo at this point. And we also have a program on the airframe. We're working the Dimoire with the depot right now. That should be finished soon. We got 60 programs we're planning in FY16. And then the partnership contract, again, a win-win for the teams. Stock availability up, and turnaround time has been going down. I think I exceeded my 10 minutes. But
Any quick cargo questions? Okay, seeing none.
I don't think you have any charts, do you?
No charts. Hey, good morning. My name's Courtney Cote. I'm the project manager for UAS. I'm about 13, 14 months on the job. So from an aviation perspective, when I look at the theme here, key to aviation readiness, I think first, from an industry perspective, you got to understand where is UAS in the battle space. And it's something that I try to hit every time I get the opportunity to speak to industry at a conference, is you got to understand that it's not a group of UAS or Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, Group 4 UAS. It's a capability at an echelon. So I think it's critical that the industry needs to understand that the Army employs a capability and we do it at an echelon, and it just happens if it's a Group 2 or a Group 3 or Group 4 or Group 1 UAS that delivers that capability, then so be it. So I encourage you to focus on, if you have a capability, figure out what echelon the Army wants that delivered to, and then focus on whatever UAS delivers that. Don't bring forward something that you think goes great on a UAS, but the Army absolutely has no need or hasn't articulated a requirement for that capability at that echelon where that UAS operates. So I think relevant for this forum is really our Shadow UAS and our Gray Eagle UAS. Our Shadow UASs are right now in the process of converting over from our version 1, which was in all the brigade combat teams across the Army, converting over to our version 2s, which brings TCDL, some increased wingspan, increased endurance, and a couple other things. Also focused on some readiness that goes along with those airframes. But most importantly with that is Shadows are now being put into a combat aviation brigade, and it's being done in a deliberate fashion. We're pursuing man-to-man teaming. So what does that mean? It means now an aviation person like me is sitting down and I'm looking at UAS from an aviation perspective, from my experiences in an aviation formation. What are the things that drove me towards readiness and the things that were important to me? Is one, we have some educating that we need to do, and making sure that we're the captains, the majors, the lieutenant colonels, and people that we're making responsible for these weapon systems understand what it is that they're inheriting. They know how to employ them, but how do they generate readiness with those weapon systems? One, we have to make sure that they're equipped, because nobody's sitting down in the OBCs and the captain's career courses or anything like that and having that conversation with them. So one, there's a realization that UAS is now part of the aviation formation. And so our PC NCOs, QC NCOs, PC officers, maintenance officers, BAMOs, everybody has to fully embrace that, educate themselves on it, and know it. I'm not indicating that they don't, but it's part of aviation now. We've got to have that realization. That's at the Shadow level. At the Gray Eagle level, we're still in the process of even fielding those to the Army. We're on the 9th unit of 15 total units. That's across Division Gray Eagle units. Our Intelligence and Security Command will have Gray Eagles. We're in the process of fielding that first unit, as well as our SOCOM units. And every one of those is deployed at a different place on the face of the earth, delivering a capability to a different customer in different environments, from a fully fixed base to extremely austere. So from a readiness perspective, we have to look at where we're employing them, how we're employing them, and what we're expecting from those platforms. So you also, I think, need to understand, where did we come from? We procured from a UAS perspective whatever was available in the market at that time that delivered against that requirement. We didn't necessarily articulate from a design criteria, reliability criteria, from an aviation perspective, what we expected of those platforms. We're having those conversations now. We're starting to have those conversations not only about the current platforms, but also the platforms that we're envisioning for the future. How are we going to modernize the Gray Eagle? Even though we haven't fully fielded it, we're already talking about how do we modernize that potentially. Then how do we drive reliability into our Shadow systems, and then future tactical UAS systems. Being able to articulate that to industry. So from an industry perspective, I would just ask, understand where UAS is in the battle space, where do we put it in our formations, and then how we're delivering those capabilities. Where is it what you have fits into that construct, and what can you bring to the table that helps us address the reliability? Most of that reliability resides in our propulsion systems. So whenever I first came on the job and I started getting the incident reports or the CCIRs and stuff about a Shadow system that had to deploy its chute, or a Shadow system fell out of the sky, or a Gray Eagle engine quit, or something like that, I have to admit I was a little bit surprised. I was a little bit overwhelmed. I had to recalibrate, because certainly in a man system, that's not something that we would accept, or not be, I guess, desensitized to. But we do have that issue. We're on our second engine on the Shadow. We're in the process of pursuing a third engine for the Shadow system to put on there, and it's all driven at reliability. That is the highest reliability driver on that platform, and readiness as well. So where we started with readiness also is, whenever we bought those systems, we bought the readiness with them. We expected contractors to be able to deliver that readiness. We are now in the process of migrating those maintenance tasks to the 15 Echoes. So when we bought them, there wasn't even an MOS to maintain them. Now there's an MOS to maintain them. We're starting to drive those maintenance tasks to the 15 Echoes that are in those formations, so they can do that maintenance. But we have to also recognize that we have an entire population of soldiers that are now NCOs that were those junior enlisted people that had FSRs that did everything for them. So now those are the NCOs that are responsible for managing the maintenance program for a UAS formation, as well as delivering that readiness through the maintenance program. So we have to continue to educate and enable them and give them the tools to do that. So if there's something from an industry perspective that you can infuse into that construct, we're always certainly willing to engage and have that discussion. So I always say that UAS is different maybe, but it's not unique. It's an aviation platform. It's a program. It's a program that can be managed, and we do manage it. We can break down the metrics. We can do all the same analysis that we do on the manned platforms, and we know what the failure rates are, what fails, then we just need to be able to get after that. What I do ask from industry, though, is just an acknowledgement that UAS is part of the aviation formation. It is part of where Army aviation is going. We're increasing our reliability or our reliance on unmanned platforms. So in a portfolio and in a world that's a manned platform centric platform or a manned platform centric portfolio, just begin to incorporate into your thought process and what you're focusing on and what you're bringing forward to aviation readiness is also focused on the UAS, and educate yourselves on that and what you can bring forward, because a lot of times what's applicable on a manned platform, like the cold coating or whatever the gentleman brought up earlier, hey, a composite airframe or smaller things that are more reliable, stronger, that last longer on a UAS are just as important. So incorporate that into your thought process, into whatever you think you can bring forward that brings forward readiness and reliability. And then also one last point in terms of the education process, and Josh and Mr. Washaball talked about all the regulations and policy and stuff like that. Right now, if you look through a lot of that policy, it doesn't really address UAS in a very robust way. So that's something that has to be incorporated. So for instance, 700-138 readiness reporting in USR, UAS has no readiness reporting requirement in 700-138. So we track that readiness at the PM level. We coordinate with FORSCOM. We talk to the units. We interact with them. You know, when 2/3 of your formations exist outside the aviation formations, they're in a BCT or something, readiness and readiness reporting becomes something of a challenge. So, so as a capability and as an Army, we're still in the process of incorporating UAS into that readiness reporting. So whenever I think of aviation readiness, it kind of, in a simple sense, it's really an education and a realization that UAS is here. We need to incorporate it. It's different, but it's not unique. So from an industry perspective, start to incorporate that into your thought process and what it is that you have or what it is that you might be able to pursue or bring to the table that can contribute to the future of UAS and aviation formations.
You know, speak to some of the partners that we have here. What are some of the tools that you can see that industry can expand for us? Some technologies and management as we fold full UAS, everything from gray eagle to shadows to what follows on to shadow into the aviation brigade. Again, you know, in the aviation brigades, we offer the ground force commander the ability to manage those systems. You know, our standardization, maintenance, safety, tactical operations, for which, you know, we're known for. How can industry come help the brigades, brigade commanders, and their experts as we fold it under that wing, so to speak, which really is the solution? Having Gray Eagles working for aviation brigades, or if you will, at least the feeding, caring, maintaining thereof, and you know, we're able to increase our shadow level of readiness as we're folding them back under aviation brigades, that aviation-centric mindset. What can industry do to help us with that, I think, is maybe something that we can do. And then I'd also be interested if you could talk some of the requirements and some of your perspective on the replacement for the shadow, potentially.
Okay, good questions. I appreciate it. So from an industry perspective, what can they bring to bear in a combat aviation brigade from a sustainment perspective is At the most basic level, so from special tools, test equipments, and things of that nature. UAS, again, like I said, is different but not unique. So one example, a Hellfire rail tester or Hellfire launcher tester. Same test kit that exists in an Apache formation, right? As the same test kit that would test the rails on a Gray Eagle. So you would think that you would go to a ASB or something and you could use that same test kit and leverage it across it. Not the case. Two different software loads. So whenever you have a piece of a test equipment or a special tool or something like that, educate yourself on what is a UAS platform, what are the things that are on it, what are the things it takes to test it, calibrated tools, things of that nature, things that we're starting to ask our OEMs, common fasteners, things of that nature, so we can leverage the tools. And to that end, I also just had to sit down with the aviation systems PM. We kind of started drawing the Venn diagram. Where are all the places that UAS crosses over manned platforms in terms of tools, special tools, test equipment, and things that we just mentioned. So draw your Venn diagram and start doing your analysis and figure out where those overlaps are in the Venn diagram. And I think those are the areas that you could leverage towards an ASB or UAS formation. So we're not, we don't have a whole extra truck to move around one set of equipment for 12 air vehicles, 12 Shadows and 12 Gray Eagles, and all the manned platforms. And to your question about future requirements. So the Aviation Center just created the capabilities CBA, looking forward to the future tactical UAS. And so we're starting that slog, I call it a slog, or through that JSIG process, the requirements definition and stuff like that. General Lundy's been very vocal, very specific about the things that drive that. So I think in the future you're going to see some things articulated probably from the Aviation Center, what he needs or what we think we need, and how we can be compatible and relevant in the future battle space. Battle space that's not necessarily defined by a 100-year-old aircraft, but defined by the FVL and where those platforms are going and how they're going to operate. And then also how the autonomous battle space is going to be defined and how the autonomous battle space is going to evolve from where we are now. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, that was a question I was going to have is where are we? I know the other services are doing autonomous tech demonstrators already. How linked are you guys in the joint arena to what Navy and Air Force is doing?
Not a whole lot with the Air Force. Our main touch point with the Air Force is just having a common OEM between the Reaper, Pred B, and the Gray Eagle. So from that perspective, not very linked, just because our con ops are different. But I would say with the Navy and the Marines, linked from a perspective of pursuing a common, what we call a universal control interface. In other words, collaborating with them through our interoperability working groups and stuff to make sure that what you have and what I have all work the same way whenever we connect them all together. And then also pursuing a universal control interface. So one day in the future, we don't have a whole Shadow system and a whole Gray Eagle system. We have a universal control interface that's dismounted, mounted, and placed, and it can control any air vehicle and interfaces with an autonomous battle space. Did that answer your question?
Sir, as you bring on the green suiters to do the maintenance, what are we thinking about at the organic level in training and equipment and tooling so that the depot can be ready for you in the future?
So, good question, because right now, Garner, Colonel Pogue and I have had those conversations about what is it that we can leverage the depot system towards in UAS. Right now, not a lot, but as we define that future tactical UAS and we define what we want in a modernization program for our Gray Eagle or the future Group 4 or whatever, however those capabilities will be delivered in the future battle space, we can start to define what those things are and how we want to sustain it. Go back to where I started. We procured what was available from the market at the time that we were making the demand on the market for all the right reasons, because it was we still can't deliver all the UAS capability and demands. We can't meet the demand signal right now. So imagine what that was, 10 years ago or so, when most of these systems actually started being used in earnest. But as going forward, we'll start to define that. How do we want to sustain it? How do we want it to act? How do we want to design it?
Guys, we better move to the next.
Hopefully chart showed up. Hopefully chart showed up good. Hello, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Cassino. I am the product manager for Apache production and fielding. Colonel Hager sends his regrets. He is supporting a joint US-UK program review right now. There are 3 product offices in PM Apache. In addition to myself, my deputy is Joe Kendig, great American who's helped me out every day. I got about 3 months in the chair. The other 2 product offices are Apache Sensors. That's Joe, Lieutenant Colonel King, and Ski Horex is deputy, and Lieutenant Colonel Herman and Gordon Porter represent mods development. How that breaks out, my day-to-day duties are the Apache production line, Delta to Echo model. My typical day is working, definitizing Lot 5-6 and working towards a multi-year contract for Apache and doing lots of Pentagon drills. My brother Joe Herman on mods development, he is working towards getting version 6 software efforts complete, for which will eventually be incorporated in a production line. And sensors, obviously, TADS, PINVIS, FCR efforts. What this chart depicts, it's a bit of an eye chart on the bottom. The numbers, if you focus on the purple is the Echo model numbers in the field. We just DD-250'd aircraft number 116. What does that mean for operations? We have 3 battalions fielded. And we have Fort Rucker is getting the next several aircraft now, as Colonel Cleathermos mentioned. What that means for CCAD, the overall AAO acquisition objective of 690, 634 reman, and the rating being new builds. We're pretty immature fleet at this stage, just coming on board. We know that you have 2 crash damaged aircraft. To prepare me for this, I talked to our log lead, Mr. John Smith, and Terry Schwerling, our sustainment branch as well. We know that Apache work has gone down. We know that we do have our core responsibilities. That 50% has been discussed, of course. I'm also very aware with the, we'll call it the demise of the KW. How does that work balance out for CCAD with 3 platforms instead of 4 platforms? Your 2 aircraft that you'll see, the various different A codes, you'll probably see ramp up to probably 6 per year, probably sometime 17 and beyond is what Mr. Smith is telling me. The other thing is the patch chart. We just had the Apache PPR in Mesa, Arizona in August. The Commander 3101, now 217 CAV, because all the patches are in flux as we balance what's CAV and what's not. Ken Smith gave a very good update to us as to how the program office did and how his battalion's doing receiving the E-model. And they're shooting a gunnery, they're training, they're currently not scheduled to deploy soon, so that was a different type of AAR event than what we've had in the past 10 or 12 years, where you get the last battalion commander to come in and talk about operations in Afghanistan. About a year ago, first the 229th, the first Echo model unit, I did get to sit in that AAR up in DC, and the word that was used for how the Echo model does in theater, it is disruptive technology to enemy forces because of the station time and the responsiveness that all that performance has given them. And he had 2 different numbers for what was the legacy D-model time. Basically, when troops needed it to when it was showed up was about 45 minutes. And they got down to 18 minutes reaction time with the E-model because of how they could sequence their fleet and keep them in the air longer. So the E-model is doing absolutely what it needs to do in theater as we speak. As it's a new aircraft and it was deployed earlier than any other version of the Apache, it's had its hiccups. The transmission saga is well known, and we are working through that. There's no impact on the production line now when it comes to transmission, but when it comes to actually every number, every place, every ASL, we're still working on that. And Boeing has been a great partner. The 129 housing, it's going to resolve some of the known issues is coming on board, and there is a specific aircraft number in the production lots that that new transmission will come in. Now the green button. There we are. This chart, if you look at the dates, and it just walks you through the evolutions of the Apache, with there being three main platforms. Of course, the Lakota is there supporting the Guard and now Rucker. Our newest platform, 1984, first model rolls off, so our new kid on the block is 31 years old when we're talking platform. So from a strategic standpoint, the Apache is, we are a mature platform, and the Echo model is a great iteration of it. As we look at the capabilities that we're getting, the improved drive system, as Mr. Baker talked, we've already gone through our A model performance, lost it with Block 1 and Block 2 Delta model, and the E model version 1, we bought back our performance with the improved drive system. I think I have much else to say on this chart. This is the objective Echo model. We went through the iterations. Basically, Echo model is going to have 3 lots or versions, and lot 1, version 4, which will be cut in very soon, and lot version 6 is being developed now. That is the objective end state for the Echo model. All of the Apache Echo models that are produced will eventually be retrofitted to version 6 capabilities. There is a laundry list of acronyms on here. The strategy was the version 1 gave us most of the mechanical changes. Version 4 has some limited mechanical, and version 6 is mostly software. And this was a funding-based strategy. We obviously have what we want to do. The technology was there back in 2005 when Block 3 was conceived, before we started calling it E-model, and how we're fielding this and developing it, resource-constrained environment. This was a funding-based strategy to get to version 6. Going forward, we're looking at common configuration. You've heard several times during this symposium about the focus on FMS. And one of the things is there is one production line for Apache. It's in Mesa, Arizona. And there are FMS customers in addition to the USG. And will absolutely benefit from coming to a common configuration that can then be adjusted USG or FMS. And that's an objective at this point. Oh, let me go back one. Right now, there were 2 versions of this chart. One did break out ECPs, one did break out block. One of the realities or things you learn as an acquisition guy is you're supposed to only brief approved truth. So the approved truth today is that the Apache production line is over in 2025. If we were to continue on with Apache, and if we talk strategically, we have joint multi-role out in the 2040s. And the joint multi-role, if it does do two missions, attack and lift, attack replacement is at the end of the line as the lift medevac first, lift birds, utility aircraft are gone first. Realistically, we're not going to go 25 plus years without doing something to the Echo model. That stated, if we were to relive a Block 3 type investment strategy, and that's what is being potentially asked to be placed into the POM, where will we go and what will we do? If you look at the airframe, as was discussed yesterday, we do have the the back of the aircraft, the tail boom, the tail rotor, that is still the same configuration it's been since A models in my lieutenant days. The PM doesn't make these decisions. It's the users, it's the TICM, it's what the customer needs done. What is that next iteration of Apache? One of the topics that was discussed at the MIST, the modernization teaming, Colonel White, Colonel Lundy had asked for a study of what is the cost of speed. It's a big strategic question. So do we make a faster Apache? Or do we go after sensors, technologies? Do we go after better ACE? What will that be? So these answers all need to happen pretty shortly. If we're going to get to a production line something in 2026 for Mesa, you're looking at probably needing a milestone B decision in the 2020, 2021 at the absolute latest time frame to actually then do about a 5-year development, get through limited user testing to get to a production iteration on the aircraft. The focus of this symposium, I was told to brief you the next 10 years. The next 10 years is very straightforward for Apache. We're going Echo model, we're going to version 6. We still have the D fleet out there the entire time. If you looked at the first chart, there were still 92 aircraft Block 2 at the end. If you recall the end of the Alpha model during the conflict, it was then decided to actually convert those last few battalions. So that's a long ways off. We'll see what happens there. As stated specifically for CCAD, we're looking at a ramp up of potentially 6 aircraft per year with the A codes, and of course public-private partnership, mostly with our Boeing, but due to the type of work that you do here on those components. And we're looking at absolutely investigating all the legacy or Delta model type components that you do now. What was it going to take to get that kind of work here again? And yes, I know the blades go from metal to composite, but Mr. Thomas had an excellent brief on yesterday of how those skills are there, and we can get through that. Open it up for questions.
Okay, Apache attack questions. Here we go.
So CCAD is very interested in making sure that we are posturing ourselves for the future. So I don't know if you were in the audience yesterday when I was stumbling through my brief, but so for the vision and the mission, the end state, part of that for us is posturing ourselves for the future, and we appreciate lashing up. Certainly, with the PMs on this, but specifically for Apache, we want to make sure that we are planning, and really for all the airframes, but we want to make sure that we're planning ahead of time for pilot programs, tooling requirements, any type of investment that we need to make. As you were going through your milestone charts, we have those as well, and a lot of that is to plan in advance what we want to spend our CIP money on. So we have a 6% requirement. We shot a big part of that on the STTS, which is flexible to accept any new dynamic components as they come out. So we'll be able to test whatever comes out. But setting up the pilot lines, and Thomas Sandoval or one of my other industrial engineers, Crescent, could jump in here. I want to make sure that we have lashed up between my production engineers, our scientists, and then at the plant with your engineers, and make sure that we have a line of communication open and some method of continuing discussions so that we don't end up adding to a timeline unnecessarily to bring that work to the plant. So we would want to bring that work to the plant as soon as possible, whatever that is for Mike, Echo, and Fox components. And we want to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to be part of that solution. Certainly, we want to be in our public-private partnerships with our public-private partners. We want to be the source of supply, and we want to be well prepared for that. So, really, I guess it's not a question. But I just want you to know that we want to be well prepared for that, and please include us when you're thinking about those types of things. Make sure that we are getting involved in those IPRs, because I'll send, or Thomas will send his engineers up whenever you guys start talking about that.
Yeah, we'll make sure we got that. If you think there's a weakness or we're short somewhere, just let me know, and we'll work that. Because it's more than just Apache, I think. And we need to work it across.
I'm just sitting here thinking as you guys are talking, and I'm thinking that I don't remember ever sending anybody TDY, any of my engineers TDY, to participate in any discussions or meetings or things like that, and that may be a missed opportunity. We may not be stepping out, asking to support, and sending the right folks as you are working through those discussions, and I want to make sure that we're there to backstop these programs.
Yeah, I need to sit and talk with somebody and figure out when's the right opportunity. I mean, I spend...
Fire the mouse on B.
Because I live in the Pentagon, but you guys don't want to go to all that crap. So, I mean, when and where would be the right opportunities, what I just need to understand, and then we'll make that happen. We can work that, but I just need to understand what's the right opportunity, because like I said, you don't want to do the stuff that we did.
You guys are responsible for providing tools, test things, investment in the plan as
Right.
well. And we want to actually plan those dollars well, because I've got a 6% CIP investment that I can make. We want to make sure that that's invested in those dollars invested in technology, tools, and plan are what we need.
Yeah, no, we have the AMCOM guys with us all the time too, and I don't know if they're trying to represent you guys or not. So that might be a...
This is Thomas Sandoval, Director of Production Engineering. This isn't a question, but I do need your support in justifying the renovation for our advanced composites capability here at the depot. We're currently going through that process right now, we've identified the facility requirements, but we still need that workload justification to be able to move forward with that renovation. So if I could just, have a sidebar with y'all later on today,
Yeah,
we could talk about future workload with the Echo, Fox, and Mike.
Yeah, come see me. I'll put you with the right guy to work that, because I'm not going to...
Yeah, that's a really interesting question systemically. We talk about life cycle commands, AMCOM and all that kind of stuff. Interesting, on the front end of the design, if we're talking about the entire life cycle of a system, who's thinking about the connection here, when they come back through this system? I've never heard anybody actually systemically address that.
Well, AMCOM sits with us in
Right.
our buildings doing those things with us, and I don't know for sure that how much they're doing of that or not, whether we have to have a separate CCAT.
But when it gets down to the tactical level...
But I need to verify that it's getting done
Yeah,
right.
cool.
Yes. Right. No, I agree. Yeah. Not for public. It's non-attribution.
I just say one thing, sort of, if TDY funds are an issue, just whichever meeting you're
We just need
supporting.
to make
and
sure
you're-
that's right.
you're-
meeting.
we'll take
That's not
care.
the issue.
Yeah, right.
I want to make sure that we're there and being helpful.
We're going to go to Jim next.
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Jim Hawkins. I'm the utility helicopters log chief, and I'm here to talk to you about our programs. I was sitting through the meetings yesterday, and I was dwelling on the keys to readiness. Right. Well, early in my career, I worked on that side of the house for 15 years until I came over on the project office side of the house, and it wasn't lost on me what John Jensen said yesterday about 70% of life cycle costs is in the sustainment world, and what we need to start focusing on TDP, procurement, development, and execution of that so we can have sustainment life cycle. So I just got a couple charts that I want to show you guys on what we're doing as a project office, and I believe in the Blackhawk project office, we work on a daily basis to improve reliability, combat obsolescence, and increase competition within to help my AMCOM brothers to buy the part for the lowest cost possible. And all that stuff that we do with them and teaming with them really translate to a more efficient supply chain management. Kevin Reese talked about this yesterday, but I know we got some log engineers within Blackhawk that's working the Tagnite stuff. We're also working cold spray. We've done a couple test case on gearboxes at CCAD that's in Safer today to try to reclaim that stuff. And And we're also looking at laser additive manufacturing where we can, you know, which is more focused on titanium and stainless, right? So we're looking at that stuff. It's just in the infancy of that. And we're also looking at trying to drive down repair to the lowest level we can in the Army, right? A good example of that's the engine airlet. You know, 80% of those that come off wing that come back to depot just need a welding procedure done on basically, right? So we're trying, and they already have the TIG weld capability in the field, so we need to try to look at it from that perspective too, right? To keep things in the retail system as long as possible. One of the things that we got to continue to strive to do is develop a more robust STTE test equipment in the field, because you know we need to drive down our knee-offs and stuff that we're getting, and we also need to, and which I think we're doing a much better job in the TRADOC environment for getting TADs out there that really support the actual configuration of the aircraft that we're flying, as well as mirroring the software for all the training aids that we are as close as possible as the blocking strategy we're doing on our aircraft fleet. Next chart. This chart here is where we're at today and where we plan to be within the next 15 or so years. If you look at this chart, it shows that we got 8 recognized configurations. We have many more configurations than that are non-standard based on ONS requirements. And we fully intend at some point to get down to 4 basic configurations, which would be the UH-HH-60M and the UH-HH-60 Victor, which would help tremendously in the log tail and the capability of maintaining and focusing on depot programs that we really need to focus on. If you look at this, we're going to divest the 60 Alphas by 2024. UHEH and also the HH60 Alphas that we had 4 Alphas that were actually Q models that we turned to Alphas that we're going to divest. We're going to start divesting the Legacy Limas starting in 2024, but it's going to be a slow ramp, as you can see on that white. 60V is going to come online in the 19 time frame. I got a chart on the 60V I want to talk about later in the briefing. And the other big hitter I want to hit on that is that the ITEP, when it comes online, it's going to go a long way for our platform meeting our 6K95 requirement. It's also going to give us better fuel economy, and it's going to allow us to get from point A to point B without stopping for a lot of refueling efforts, okay, and emission profile. So that's going to go a long way. And then we got the Lakota, which we've talked about earlier today and yesterday. It's a FAA certified bird that's going to Fort Rucker as a training bird, and we're still maintaining some National Guard entities on that. Next chart. This chart and the last chart, or the next chart, is really focused on the last 10 or 11 years of war that we had that we needed to get the platforms up and running, that we have determined that through the TICM and engineering that and the project office that these are going to be enduring requirements, and most of these focus on obsolescence and reliability improvements on the platform, right? As well as BAPS is AFC, but that's an A-kit application for BAPS, and the next generation's coming on board is going to be the EBAP, which is a lighter capability, which reduces our weight, allows us to perform missions better. We put an IBHMS on the legacy aircraft. They come on the mic. Inlet barrier filter, that's a reliability, longevity improvement for the engines. And I could walk the dog on this if you want me to, but you guys can read it yourself. That's the focus on that. What's coming online on this is these are things that we're in the process of doing. The pitch trim servo, for example, is a reliability improvement to the platform. We got spindle lug Spindle lug force mate bushings, we're working through that process right now. It's gonna help us in the spindle world tremendously. As a result of the AHRS issues that we had, Colonel Todd, our previous project manager, wants to make sure we got a backup indicator on there, like very similar to what we have at ESIS-wise on the UH-60M for redundancy. So we're working that. Relay panels, obsolescence or reliability improvement, Talon FLIR, that's a lighter FLIR that is better than the Star Sapphire, so we're going to that. And we're also in the process of doing the aft transition door modification, which rolls right into the Victor, so we can get to the avionics structure in the transition section. And that covers that. Now let's go to the next chart, if you would. I'm sorry, I could do that. This chart here is our Victor program, right? We just completed a successful CDR in the UH-60 Victor, right? So we're starting to bend metal. We're going to build 5 production representative aircraft, and which I believe is supposed to be 3 and 2, right? 2 here, Colonel?
Yes.
So the timeline we're looking for is, I can't even read this little thing myself. We're going to start, if you look at that, you're looking at the 88L recapitalization, the yellow banner. That's 40, 40, 40, and it's going to start going down. We're going to continue to build 40 in FY20, but then we're jumping up to 48 on out in the out years. And I was talking to Roy Hollins earlier, out there.
Better have said yes.
Yeah, he did. No, he did. He did say yes, but him and I were talking about, the TAT times and what we need to do to try to reduce those, and some of that is parts, right? So we got to figure out the best way to get parts here without something going through PSA 2 and then sitting 90 days or 120 days. So we're going to work that process. So, and this thing is, this Victor model is going to be 80% common, I believe, to the UH-60M, right? And from a PVI perspective, it's exactly the same. So that's going to help tremendously in the field. It's going to reduce the logistics footprints. It should reduce some AGSE requirements, PGSE requirements, at least PGSE, Peculiar Ground Support Equipment. It should reduce that requirement on the field. And go a long way towards maintaining our fleet and the situational awareness and digitized battlefield requirements for years to come. Something else that's not on these charts that I wanted to talk to you CCAD folks about is that we are aggressively working with the OEM to develop DMWARs, right? Now, I think we got 3 things that are really going that are real important. The first thing is that we're working directly with Mr. Reese and my log engineers on very common parts like main gearboxes, right? You got the only difference between a Lima and a Mike is output shaft, right? The length of it. So we're trying to roll those into our existing DMWARs with that new model, okay? The hard nut is the new component DMWARs that we got to develop, and we got to do that through the OEM, and we're working that aggressively. The third thing I wanted to talk about is that it's a task order 25, which is the main composite main rotor blade for the UH-60M. Now, we developed some MEOs through the PIF that we have sent down here. Thomas did a pilot program on it, and we were able to successfully complete that. And we believe that that's going to kickstart us to getting the repaired blades back out in the field from you guys. The next step is we just signed a contract to do an M&O repair with Sikorsky, but what's tied to that is their Sikorsky repair products have got to be rolled into an ORI so we can substantiate it, frozen plant it, get them down here and get you guys kick-started. I'm aggressively working to get the money down here so we could buy the tools that we need to do that. I think they've been definitized. I think Sikorsky is aware of where we're at, and they're leaning forward to get them. I just got to get the money down here and get a contract vehicle to do that. So I'm working through Thomas in my business office to do that.
Yeah, let me know what I can do to help.
Okay. And that's all I had for my presentation, pending questions.
Okay, Hawk questions.
I knew he was going to ask.
Okay, you're gonna
Here he
get, you know
goes.
you're gonna get one from me. How do we collectively work better? You know, and the Colonel brought it up, but how do we collectively work better to start bringing this, to do this better planning left of the aircraft getting into the field so that we have an organic capability when we hurt the first one, crash the first one, you know, and apparently I had the same problem. We don't crash an aircraft the same way. So how do we come left of that so the depot is postured to help you in those needs? And that goes really across all the PM platforms. We don't have the tech data to help you. We don't have the tools to help you. We don't have the training in some cases because you went advanced composites before we did. So how do I help you and become part of the planning process so we can go more further left of that so we can respond quicker?
Can you do away with acquisition streamlining?
Well, all that PQM training that you guys are making me take says I'm supposed to be thought of at milestone B. So, I mean,
I hear you, man. I hear you, and we're trying to do that. We've tried to push everything unfortunately, logistics development, TMs, provisioning, publications development, DEMWAR development. That's the tail end of that, right? So it's always lagging behind, and we're always striving to pull it back to the left. But it's very difficult when you get a milestone C decision and you go into production, and they say, okay, I want 30 Hawks to the 4th Bat 159th to go to theater in 2008, right? So we're fighting that all the time, as everyone else knows.
It's interesting, though, from a perspective. I wonder, with your partnerships, Colonel, here with the airframe manufacturers, has there ever been a situation where you've got personnel up there on the initial assembly line at Stratford and Sikorsky, seeing how they're putting together a brand new whatever M or something on the front end? Do you guys get involved up? Have you ever been invited up?
Yeah, we have. I know we've been, we just has folks up in Mesa just recently, like the last 3 weeks ago, I think. So we've been, I don't know that everybody and we've got a bunch of new directors that have just recently, we've had a high turnover of folks at the senior levels of the plant. And so I don't know how many of the new directors have been out to the plants, but I know, I'm looking back at Rick and Marco now, and I know they haven't been, and they probably need to get out there. I know Thomas has been out, but we need to get him out there as well. So I have no shortage of invitations from my public-private partners, trust me, to get us out there. Always very gracious. However, I expect them to make their production schedules, so I don't let them go off. I don't let them go off on too many boondoggles.
Learning opportunities, professional learning opportunities.
There you go.
You got one back here? Yep. We got a couple here. 1 second. Just got to get you on tape here, otherwise we can't hear you.
Marisa Redondo, I work for Mr. Hollins in the Director of Aircraft Production. I'm just wondering if you're considering, with the current downsizing efforts that we are undergoing, the risk that we have to ramp up from producing 39 aircraft to 48 in that 1 year, in order for us to get the right number of trained artisans on board.
Right.
There's going to have to be some risk taking in order to allow us to hire the right people at the right time, to have them here in order to be able to produce 48 in FY21.
Right. I realize that's a challenge going from 40 to 48. That's a challenge.
Yeah, we do see that as one of the biggest risk areas of that program. And the Army as a whole has taken a lot of risk in doing 60B the way we're doing it, instead of hiring OEMs and doing it in-house. But that, as you said, is one of the things that we highlight as one of our things that we've got to spend a lot of time focusing on, because that's going to be the one easy place to stub our toes along the way.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, our
There's
team,
going to be lots of them, but that's going to be one of the biggest ones that we could do. And we're spending a lot of time trying to help on that. But, and I know you are too, so, and we've got time, but we need to make sure we keep on it right up to the very end, because it's going to be probably the hardest challenge we've got going in that program.
absolutely. And we're working in lockstep with those guys on that.
Right.
I think the supply chain is a bigger challenge than the personnel piece.
That's fair.
You know, as we slip that rheostat
Because it's a rheostat. You know, turning the production from 38 to 48 is just adjusting the rheostat with the induction. So I think it's a supply chain management, program management piece is going to be critical. Folks to do this work, we will have the folks to do this work. We will have the folks to do this work. I think that's going to be not necessarily easy, but easier to manage.
Yeah,
I'm not worried about the folks and working the shifts to get through that. I mean, recently we did 52. We did 52 in 2012, and we've adjusted back down. And of course, that's driven our costs up when we drive the number of labor hours out of the plant. But as we bring those labor hours back in, you know, we desperately need this work at the plant, and we will make that production schedule.
yes, sir. What's challenging for the PM is the fact that we're planning to induct aircraft into the Victor line as vanilla as possible, right? So that means we got to do a lot of MWO applications on aircraft that's not been modified, and we got to demod aircraft for non-standard stuff that we want to try to induct, right? And we're coordinating that with our AS brethren too, you know, like for ARC 231 applications and stuff like that. But what that encompasses, if you do the worst case scenario, we could have an aircraft out of a unit 6 months prior to inducting the aircraft into depot, right? And we don't have enough floats to support that, so that's what even makes it more important that we try to drive TAT down across the board, right? And we got to work together on that because we just don't have enough floats to support that throughput requirement, plus the 6 months that we'd have to do prior to induction, right? So we're working that.
And the other risk we add to this issue, not just that year, but is the fact that we've got this tied with production money and sustainment money are both. It's the first program we've tried to do that with, and if either one of them takes a cut or a hit, it really will mess up everybody. And so we're working that hard in the building, and they understand it. But, you know, by then we'll be down to, you know, 3 more people from now, because they'll change out 3 more times, and so we have to remind everybody every time, don't touch that money. And so that's another fight that adds risk to this whole issue as we go along.
Yeah, keeping that money aligned is important.
So, from your perspective here, trying to figure out what your top 3 across all these fleets, what are your top 3 maintenance issues that you guys are dealing with? And the reason why I'm asking is because I'm trying to, you know, I'm looking at Rucker, obviously, and our issues are, you know, moisture a lot of times. And so I'm trying to figure out what we're doing about getting at moisture and keeping that out of the aircraft. So when I have 3 to 4 days of rain, and this happens at brigade level, it happens everywhere. When I have 3 or 4 days of rain, that I don't have 25% of my fleet that has to be run up. And I wish we had a big vacuum that we could just stick to it and suck out all the moisture of the aircraft, but that's not going to happen. So is it your top 3 maintenance concerns? Is moisture one of them? Is it propulsion? Is it, you know, power? Is it engines? Is it avionics? I mean, it's all of those. I'm just trying to figure out, because it's all about money, right? And where we divest that time and energy to fix those problems. So I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Yeah,
That.
well, the top 3, I don't know that I could come up with 3 right now. I mean, corrosion was coming on the top of my mind, so that'd be the moisture issue, obviously, as one. But when you go back to the money issue, though, the way we get money is by program. So they're not going to be addressing it as across the enterprise effort. It's going to be addressed as, what is your top reliability driver in UAS? What's your top driver in Chinook? And so, and those we track the top there and we work those off. Sometimes they're the same issue, and we pull it into the corrosion team to do something like that, and we try to do that. But we don't receive the funding down the path of saying these are the top 3 enterprise-type efforts that we have going across the path. It'd be, and you know, as you said, engines are probably on the top of everybody's list here. And we're working them, but they're worked differently because individually, because the engines are that much differently across the board. I don't know
Interesting
if
paradigm
you guys have
again.
a perspective on that.
Because he's got a whole fleet of
I just,
all airframes.
Yeah, I understand the question, but unfortunately, the way the funding comes down, it doesn't really lend itself to looking at it from that angle. Because you never get the money that way, you never will, so.
Without a doubt, it's propulsion for UAS, because you know, Pratt and Whitney, General Electric, all those people are very honed in on developing a turbine engine that performs, you know, at 25,000 feet. Briggs and Stratton, Kubota, the commercial aviation world is not focused on developing an engine in that horsepower class that operates at 18,000 feet, because nobody buys a private aircraft that's pressurized that they want an oxygen system in to fly above 10K. So there, you know, there's a break in there in performance. We're asking things of engines and propulsion systems on UAS that sector just doesn't focus on. So it's propulsion without a doubt.
Okay, we got one question I can hear from the crowd behind the curtain here. Things are going wild in the exhibit hall. We had one more over here.
You kind of already answered it partly. I'm Marco Garcia, Director of Powertrain for the depot. So Mr. Jensen gave a good briefing yesterday, pre-war data that he had, and then ramped up data as the war continued. So we are going through program reductions. We see it both internally and externally. What is your biggest fear or risk? We live in a dangerous world where we do have to ramp up, and not per se the depot, but as an enterprise, what do you think the biggest risk is if this does happen?
Yeah, that's a little, my personal perspective, and it's completely personal, it's not Army directed, it always seems to take us longer to grow pilots, maintainers, than it does for me to find aircraft. It takes me a long time to get aircraft, don't get us wrong, and to work the industry base and to work CCAT and everybody else to jump in, but everybody jumps in with both feet, and they always do, but it takes us longer to train quality people. So the more we cut the actual Army and the top level, which kind of isn't probably fit for this type of meeting, but for me personally, that's the harder thing to fix. We get down to 420, 450, whatever they're going to go to ultimately here. Replacing that will take longer than me finding a way to get aircraft and replace those and buy. Because just like we do with UAS, we'll buy what's on the market if we had. Now we're not getting rid of anything but the Kiowa Warrior here in this, and we'll find ways to work around that. But to come back and get those to the next generation, I can do quicker than they can build a pilot. So that may not be, that's not what you're looking for. I mean, I understand, and that would be the number one risk. As far as the material side, the hardest thing for us to get going probably, yeah, I don't know, because each platform we address it in a different way, in an individual way. It'd be easier for us to throw certain things at each one separately. So I don't know how I'd answer that question. I don't know if these guys have a personal perspective on that that's different.
Just going back to, I was a two-time OIF veteran, and I remember the commanders being very frustrated at the beginning of this era on long lead parts for critical items. The one thing that sticks in my head is a brigade commander flipping out that it's almost 18 months to get the industrial base spin up for a certain component, and the rail is my kid is not missing a single Xbox cartridge, but I need a part for a helicopter and we can't get it. So that kind of thought process resonates with me as to, and we've done it historically over and over again. Another strategic thought is what we did not move into a no-kidding program, and not necessarily aviation, but the certain fire retardant uniforms and all those things, if those didn't become programs of records, they're gone. And the next time we put soldiers in a bad place in a vehicle, they're not going to have that because it's not a program of record and sustained. So think about all those things if you were an OIF veteran or all that you got thrown at you that aren't part of an MTOW. Those go away, and there'll be that 12 to 15 months of badness occurring again the next time we're in a conflict.
Yeah, for a short-term spike, and the issue is going to be, are we going to go back to putting the bare minimum on the shelves and not have anything available, or even getting rid of some of the unique things? The unique things are going to be a little trickier, because why would you keep them and maintain them if you may never use them again? Fire retardant uniforms not unique, but some of the other things that we bought specifically for OEF, OIF, we may not do depending on where we go. So that's why those QRCs and those things get kind of washed out of the system, and we'll have to buy them again if we go back to the same place. But we did, AMCOM spent billions of dollars trying to restock all the shelves, because we were running them down to nothing, to the bare minimum for just-in-time delivery for a peacetime effort. And so, yeah, the initial spike, it will be the stuff that's on the shelf. You're gonna you fight with what you got. It'll be 12 months, 18 months, whatever, before you fight with more than that. So there's a risk there, and I think there's a risk that when these kids that come home that have been over to theater multiple times, they're going to be bored silly, and if we're not training them and doing something real with them, they're going to leave, and then we're going to have people that are minimally trained, and the risk will go through the roof when they go over there the first time and have to fly in the dirt again. The brownout situation initially, some of that was TTPs, but they had never flown it because they never had to. And so now, I think when we come back, it depends on how long before we do it again, we're going to lose all that capability of training that we've had, and we'll have a spike of issues while we go back again. And that's not just that; it's the maintenance. We're letting contractors do all the maintenance, and how many? You had that conversation earlier about the sergeants aren't even trained to do phases hardly. Some of them. Some of these guys for 10 years haven't had to do one because it's all been just throw money at the problem. Depends on where you've been located, obviously. And so going back and fixing some of that and getting it back organic is something we need to work on. But again, those are the short-term spike. If we do longer, we'll throw money at it. That's how this country works. We just throw money at it, and we can fix it, and we do, because we jump in with both feet. So, sure.
Yeah, real quick, for the Block 3 and the Echo model, what did we learn? You spoke to earlier the acquisition and the fielding process from that high-end aircraft. What did we learn about the acquisition and the fielding incrementally of that airplane, and how can we talk to our industry partners on how they can help us prevent some of those lessons learned from occurring next time? Just pull your skirt up and tell us what happened, brother.
Sure.
Because we know.
Well, one of the things that we need to do is accept that development times are what they are, and one of the things you can look at with the transmission challenges, for instance, we'll say if there was, say, maybe 2 more years of development schedule, would they have found some of those cracks and all that? There are a variety of stakeholders and pressures to get to success. There are a myriad of cost challenges. One of the things is, planning all this CCAD and logistics tail, moving it to the left. Sometimes that's not going to occur because there's a certain bogey or cost target you're going to meet. And then you sit there, what you do with the rest of your life and every other decision in the Army, or the leadership prioritizes. And it's what priorities do I have to hit, or does the program team have to hit to get to yes? The endless negotiation, get to yes. So there's an AAR every time we field a system. And much like back in the day, you'd AAR every battle drill you went on, and somehow 30 days later, guess what? You're doing the same mission, and you still have a comms problem. So that's a very tough question, sir.
Yeah, I have a feeling that AAR is pretty long on that particular